just wanted to give you all a heads up that we do have an event, an event that's going to be happening here that they need to set up for. So if you could just please leave as quickly as possible once we're done, so that our event staff can get going on setting up the room. And
just one addition here, this is an event that you all are invited to. It is the OCRS social. So they're gonna ask you to give some feedback, afterward. And one plug for the feedback surveys, we actually listen to it. So every year we shape our OCRS event based on the feedback we receive. And so we would love if you leave some comments, things you like, things you don't like, things you want to see. That helps give us ideas and other things. So you know what we're doing, right? So that's the whole idea. And then also please join us from 4:30 to 5:45.
light refreshments and food, so what's not to enjoy? So our next speaker here is Ted Fitzgerald. He is the practicing attorney and business consultant, part of the County Legal Counsel for Curry County. And let's go ahead and give him a round of applause.
Well, time to get here. My name is Ted Fitzgerald. Nice to see you all. Just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. One of the reasons that I'm late is because we have a lot of emergencies in Curry County because of the way we do things. I'm an attorney. I was born in California when I moved to Curry County when I was 6, and my father was a county commissioner. One thing led to another. I stayed well away from county government until last October, when I was tricked into assisting their then county council. Once I agreed to help, he immediately resigned and got a new job. So a lot of things happened, but we started out with some severe storm emergencies, because when I'm involved in things, there are different words for people like me. Manure magnet might be it. If there's a problem, it's going to happen if I'm in charge. I took over the Port of Woodlands Harbor for a relatively short time. We had a tsunami, $6 million worth of damage. It's just things like that seem to always happen. So, of course, should not have been surprised to have the ransomware event happen at the county. I had been appointed director of county operations because we were trying to address the relatively dysfunctional governmental structure of 3 elected commissioners and no director of operations, no point of contact, so everybody just kind of works against one another for their own benefit. It's a recipe for disaster, which we had. I was notified April 26th in the morning that we had this ransomware event. All of our data was encrypted. We had the ransomware note. It said they wanted $600,000, and they weren't fooling around. And so I called our insurance company, CIS, who then connected us with a law firm, because this is a growth industry, turns out, and quite a growth industry, in fact. And they connected us with a technology company that served as what's called our breach coach in this dealing with the ransomware event, which essentially at that point meant negotiating with the ransomers, who I was told were relatively nice folks from Russia that you could actually work with. And I said, well, I gotta tell you, in Curry County, we are low on labor talent, so should I be talking to them about being our new IT consultants? Because I'm desperate, and look what happened to us. We were using a third-party IT consultant who they were actually they were part of our local electric cooperative. And this was not their fault. This was the fault of bad communication, I first learned about the lack of communication when I talked to our insurance company, and they told us that, I said, do we have cyber insurance? They said, well, you have the rock bottom minimal because you chose not to do anything like multi-factor identification or anything else like that. And so you got next to nothing. And so then we got the scope of work from our breach coach, and it far exceeded what our insurance policy covered. But we had chosen not to take any of those steps because apparently we were going to save our money and really double down in the next budget year. And in the meantime, we had been, this is before I ever got there, we've been busy giving away ARP money to different people and making lots of friends. But we had opened our county's IT network completely. It was, I'm not sure, but I think we might be the poster child for just the least prepared, dumbest group ever. We had everything, all of our network was, our firewall was completely end of life, out of date, no support on almost every one of our servers. It was an amazing thing. And I'm a lawyer, most of us, we can't add, let alone do advanced IT stuff. But then we went into the negotiation part with the ransomware. So that's a thing I can do. I negotiate with criminals all the time. I'm a lawyer. Small town lawyer, you're surrounded by this kind of stuff. So we get into this, and we said, you normally when somebody's kidnapped your child, you want to make sure they got your kid, and so you say, can you show us what you got? And so they sent us a list of files, and we looked at it, and all those files that they had sent us were available on our public website. But yeah, we were actually, all of our data was encrypted, so we were completely shut down. Law enforcement, everything's on it, flat on its back. The employees are all completely freaking out, as they should have been. And we had, everybody. What's great about people who work at the county, the vast majority of them love their jobs, they're good at the jobs, but they don't want to stop doing their jobs, and they feel, it was very difficult to communicate to my employees that they actually had to stop. I've had a lot of other employees that really never had that problem before. But a bunch of them wouldn't, like the people in the juvenile department, these people, they were like, well, we gotta work around it. I was like, no, you don't. Do not touch the network, do not do anything. Anyway, that was a rough time that resulted in some terminations, actually, because every single group, many of the things that we learned were that all of our departments had different workarounds that they've been operating with. You talk about internet security, you have policies on the books, and as soon as you're out of earshot, they're back with the thumb drives, they're back with everything. You can't even believe it, or I couldn't believe it. But they're serious. They actually, people that are helping veterans, they need to keep doing that. And so they want to figure out a way to make that happen. Well, so as we went forward with the negotiation, we realized I had to come back and say, you got to do better than that on the list, because this is all publicly available. And they're like, oh, okay, so they sent us another list. Same thing. So I was concerned because I was finding out an awful lot of stuff about this whole process, which I had not known before. And in the middle of this, I was out living my life trying to recover from the many mistakes that I've made throughout life, which resulted in me being in this particular job. And I'm there, and they're like, well, this happened in Tillamook County a couple years ago. Various things were being said. I was like, how come I've never heard of this before? Well, part of it is because we kept it, everybody keeps this stuff on the down low. And this continues on. I think that is a huge mistake. I think that transparency is paramount. This, and I mean, no disrespect to your average elected official, okay? But, like I always tell my commissioners, you guys wouldn't have these jobs if you'd been able to get normal jobs. So, in fact, I would like to get back to my old job where I made a lot more money and it was a lot easier. But when you're dealing with people that are, you know, they're trying to preserve their own personal capital as they proceed down their political life. They don't want to talk about this. We only need to know. We needed to know this while it was happening so that I could have gone to or not me, but my predecessor could have gone to them with actual information and said, this is happening. And then they might have listened to it. You know, I can't really blame these guys because it was not made clear to them how adjacent this incredible emergency was to them. And you know, like some of our guys that are no longer in office are still around. But unless you were there, you try to explain what this is like to a county. It's like you blew up the courthouse, except our courthouse has already been condemned, so it's actually worse than that. It's been condemned since my dad was a commissioner. But we were still waiting on that $100 million to rebuild it. But in the meantime, it's just us and the prisoners. But at any rate, if we'd known that, it would have been so much better going forward. And so when we were working with our breach coach, they were counseling it that we should negotiate with these people. We're trying to do it. But I will say that, and I'm just a paid person in this deal. I wasn't the final decision maker on anything. And I have to say, what the outcome finally was, we have the benefit of a couple of really great commissioners that make really wonderful decisions, and they're rational. It's really something. One of them is this former cop from Fresno. And he's like, we're not negotiating with terrorists. We're never doing it. Like, well, Brad, you know, we can't actually go to Russia and kill them. Like, right, well, I got friends. Well, that didn't happen. But it became very clear that first of all, we don't have any money. And second of all, we're not going to give $600,000 for something that you can't even verify that anything has been stolen. And so relatively early on, they said, we're changing course, we're not paying a ransom. And we made it very clear to our breach coach. And at that time, then all of a sudden, things pivoted around and we learned that there was all these state and federal resources available that we could have been using earlier. It was none of those people's fault, but people were contacting the clerk's office, all the different departments saying we could provide this IT security. Everybody's just saying, don't worry about that. I want to get a new car for my department. They worry about those sorts of things, and then once it was made clear that we weren't going to be paying the $600,000, all of a sudden we were able to finally go in a different direction. With quite a bit of help from the governor's office, actually, and I learned that, one thing about this state, I don't know if it's like this in every other state, but I will tell you, the thing that is the greatest is that everybody in the state reached out to help us. And not only did they reach out to help us, they got in their vehicles and drove down and turned their lives upside down for months. And it's an amazing thing. We've had people from Umatilla County, we've all kinds of people from Wayne County. All I've been able to do is send my daughter up here to law school to try to repay it as much as I can. But it's been so great that the way that they stepped in and they gave us direction, and we were able to build a plan and also form form alliances going forward, because we're always gonna be a small county in the hardest place to get to in the continental United States. We're the last, how many of you people have ever been to Brookings? Oh, that's pretty good, that's pretty good. If you're up in Portland, generally, when you're like, have you ever been to Brookings? I was there in 1967. It's a far-flung part of Oregon. And so it is so great that everybody actually stepped up and came down and helped us rebuild, and now we're back up and running. And in fact, we were able to stop some of the, I was able to redirect quite a bit of the earlier planned spending and dump that all into IT. So it's not the same county at all, except that's only gonna be good for, a number of months. You gotta commit to a program and keep everybody on board with it, in all of your people. And, this is a difficult job for me in Curry County because, for example, this, to give you an idea about where we are, when we were trying to do our budget this last year before all this stuff blew up, I said, we can't really do a budget because you haven't reconciled your bank accounts for 2 years. And one of the commissioners said, well, it worked last time. No, it didn't. We don't know how much money, like, I can only pay for the IT stuff if I happen to see some money come by and physically grab it and say, okay, now we buy some servers with it. Because I don't know what we got. I do know we found $900,000 in a check in a drawer about 6 months ago. So we have a lot of work to do. We're getting there. But anyway, so I will be happy to make this short. I just want to say that what I would recommend as a primary message here is that when you guys should all be encouraging and seeking out leaders that you can depend on, that will make rational decisions, whatever their political persuasion, it doesn't matter. They will make the right. If I can talk to Commissioner Alcorn and Tina Kotek, and they both come up with the same decision, I feel like we can move down the road, right? I think that's where we need to be. Those are essentially rational people, and the way that you get there is through transparency. I believe that I owe everyone here a debt to tell you about what we did wrong and about how we got to the place we are in, and that is, we did not prioritize spending on. If you don't have a network, you're not running government. You're out of business. We don't need to come. So, but I think that message needs to be communicated out to everybody far and wide and on a weekly basis till they get sick of you and ask you to leave. That's how hard you have to try, because every time you turn around, they're going to be like, these people want a swimming pool. Can we help them? No, we can't. Not until we take care of the fundamentals that actually make government work. Anyway, that's it. Yes.
With no actual political ability, like this ransomware incident gave you some political leverage to move the needle, both politically, technically, and financially. But if you could go back in time and didn't have that scary message on every computer, what do you think you could have done? What advice would you give to small counties out there? Along the lines of what you're just saying is to push hard.
I think the most important thing is for all of us to not keep what happens to us secret.
Yeah.
Because we want to muffle that, and we want to say, well, here's the other thing that I forgot. When you're there and you got these great employees who are trying to do their work, right? They're like, "Hey, you need to pay the ransom, Ted." Well, I said, that's not what you told me. When as an individual, as a taxpayer, no one wants to negotiate with terrorists. But when it comes to providing that support for that particular veteran, it's Ted's fault because he ain't pay the ransom, right? But then you have to explain to them. It's like the whole idea of when all your data is encrypted, Because I mean, when I say we're the poster child, we really are, we have no backups. We didn't even have the battery, you know, when the generator failed in the first, storm event, generator fails. Well, that's when we knew this was gonna happen, right? Because we almost lost everything right then. Did we do anything? No. No, but we did change the fuel filters on the generator. But anyway, so you're looking at you need to acknowledge where you're weak, and I mean, you need to tell people stories. You need to say, this happened. We have just come through 6 months of letting all the people that we arrest out immediately. It's as bad as it gets.
I have a story about that. I asked the commissioner to change the password to password 1, and you know, my boss was saying it's immediately explained we just had an account hacked, an actual employee account hacked from a password compromise, and he got up, screamed, "I don't care," and ordered us out of his office. So that's the kind of political level that we were given.
That's when you need to have the urge to keep your job that I have. I'm never afraid to say, sit down.
I forced 2 of them. Yeah, you can pass 1.
But,
So I know it's still early in that, but is there a plan to change your IT strategy and have actual information security focus and programs? Is there
yeah, that's what we've been working on, mostly with Lane County, helping us with Lane Council of Governments and all the other volunteers that stepped up. And ITPRC that came in, you know, we've all been working to develop a new, and trust me, I'm not dictating, I'm letting the experts tell us what to do. All I'm just the force to force you to pay for it, right? Right, exactly, that's what we can't have. Okay, better get out of here.